Now before we get into it, let me explain this real quick. I know most of y'all out there know better. There's a lot of people out there that don't. What's up, Lazy Dog fam? Hope everybody out there is having an awesome day. It is Thursday, March 9th. Another beautiful spring day here in South Georgia. And I know I should wait, but I can't take it any longer. Today, we're gonna plant some sweet corn. So we've got a few more days of warmer weather before we have a little cool spell move through early next week. Not expecting any freezing temperatures, just a little bit of a cool down. Supposed to get some rain tonight and some more rain on Sunday, so I think it'll be perfect time. Get some sweet corn planted, get it up and going. Now, contrary to what most people might think, corn can take a light frost. It won't kill it completely. I don't think we're gonna get another frost, but if we do, should be okay. Now this spring I'm trying something I've never tried before when it comes to planting sweet corn. Now this could make me look really silly in about 60 or 70 days, or it could work out wonderfully. I'll tell you more about what we're doing in a minute. So this is where we're going to be planting our corn today, one of these 30 by 35 plots in this area out here we call the Dream Garden. Now if you haven't been keeping up, a little quick recap. So back in the fall on this plot, we had a cool season cover crop planted here. Looked kind of like that over there. We let our chickens graze it 3 times. Then we mowed it down, put a tarp on it, let the tarp sit on it about a month and a half, 2 months. Pulled back the tarp a couple weeks ago, wheel hoed it one time, and then just a day or so ago we wheel hoed it once again. So we were able to get this soil in pretty good shape without using a tiller. Now to some of y'all it may look a little chunky out there, but I think we've done a pretty good job at getting this ready while kind of maintaining the structure of our soil there. Now before we talk about the variety of sweet corn we're going to plant, why we picked that variety and actually plant the corn, we need to put some pre-plant fertilizer down. We talked about the importance of that on our last video. We need to lay our drip tape and bury the tape. So this is all part of a system we call our FAD system. I realize a lot of you out there have seen this before, but there's also a lot of people that haven't seen this before. Currently our channel's growing at the rate of about 100 new subscribers a day, so a lot of people haven't seen this done before. So let me walk you through the process a little bit. FAD stands for furrow, amend, and drip. So we make a furrow in our soil. We've already done that. Then we want to amend that furrow with some pre-plant fertilizer, then add our drip tape, and then kind of cover it all up before we plant. Let's start out by kind of walking through this drip system a little bit. So we've already got our mainline tubing laid out here. This serves as the backbone of our drip irrigation system. This tubing is what is going to feed the drip tape that's placed along those furrows there where our rows will go. Right here in the center of this tubing, have a pretty simple little setup here. Got a filter, and that little white piece there is a pressure regulator. It may look complicated, but it's really, really simple. Then we just tee it off there because we want it to be kind of in the center of the plot. And then on each end of that mainline tubing, I just use a brick to kind of hold it in place, and then we have a cap put on it there. If we need to, we can unscrew that cap and kind of flush the system. And we have all these pieces and parts broken down on a blog on our website at lazydogfarm.com. So you can go to our website, see that, or if you're watching on YouTube, we usually always put links to our irrigation blogs in the description below so you can find them there as well. And just as a little side note, for those of you who already do a lot of drip irrigation or a lot of irrigation in general, you can save a lot of money by buying these big rolls of mainline tubing. So I got this off Drip Depot's website. I think this is a 500-foot roll. I knew I was going to need this much because we're going to be adding to our fig tree orchard a pretty good bit here in the next month. In the past, I would just get the 100-foot rolls, which was enough to do about 3 plots every year. But getting 500 foot at the time is significantly cheaper. So you might want to go that route if you know you're going to use it. So now back to our FAD system. So we've already got the F part done. We've got furrows made where our rows are going to go. I'll explain the row spacing more in a minute. F part's done. Now to the A part, which is amend. Need to put some fertilizer in those furrows. So for each of those 30-foot long furrows, we're going to put down one of these half-gallon scoops of this stuff here, which is a NatureSafe 855 fertilizer we really like. And if you don't already know, your fertilizer works a lot better if you take it to the garden in a dog's bucket. So now we've got the A part done there. We've got those furrows amended with that Nature Safe fertilizer. You can see those little pellets there. Now for the D part, which is the drip tape. And this year I'm going with a little thicker tape and a little closer emitter spacing than what I normally use on corn. Now this is the same P1 drip tape we use in all our other garden plots that we really like. Just a different thickness and a different emitter spacing. I think we actually use this tape on our garlic that we planted back in the fall. So the reason I wanted to go thicker with this corn here is because once the corn is done and I pull up the tape, when I'm using that 8mm tape, which is half as thick as what we're going to be using today, I tend to tear a lot of it just because the corn roots are anchored down so much in the soil. Trying to yank up that tape, end up breaking a lot of the tape. So this tape should be a little more durable and easier to get out of the ground when the corn is done. And then I wanted to go with a 6-inch emitter spacing instead of a 12-inch emitter spacing on the drip tape. That's obviously putting out twice as much water, and that will all make sense when I explain this new thing we're trying here in a minute. So putting out this drip tape is pretty simple. We just want to make sure we've got the emitters facing upwards, which we do there. I'm just going to kind of scoot it back here. I'm going to use this little staking nail, kind of pin it down at the beginning of the row. And I'm just going to grab this spool, walk it back, and we'll cut it off at the end of each row. And now that we've got our drip tape laid in all 9 of those furrows, we just need to connect our tape to this mainline tubing here and then clamp it off on the ends there. So now we just take this piece right here called a row start, and again, all these pieces with links are listed out on that blog on our website. Need to trim off our tape here just a little bit. Good to use scissors to do this. You want to cut a straight line. If you cut this crooked, it is guaranteed to leak. So we want to make sure we cut this nice and straight like that right there. Then we'll slide our drip tape onto this fitting here. Get that nice and secure. Tighten that down. Use this little tool right here to punch a hole in the main line. Just like that. And we'll pop our fitting right into there. Just like that. And then on the end of the row, we're going to use this piece here called a row end. There's several different versions of these out there. I like these simple ones here. I'm going to trim this up a little bit. There's an emitter right there. I'm going to cut it right behind that emitter. Once again, we want to make sure we cut it straight. Slide this puppy onto here. I'm going to fold it over a couple times. Try to get it nice and even there. Probably 2 times should be good. Slide it back in there. And there we go. We got it crimped on the ends here. So now that we've got our drip irrigation system all hooked up, the last thing we need to do, hook up our water hose, check for any leaks, and cover this tape. Now, this part doesn't really get a letter in the whole FAD system deal, because it wouldn't sound real good if it was the FAD or the FAD C system. So we don't give a letter for covering it up, but it's something you want to do. All right, so now we've got the water hose hooked up to our drip system there. We can see the water coming out of those emitters like it's supposed to. No leaks, so we're good to cover it up. Now you could use a rake, a garden hoe, anything you've got to cover up this tape. I'm going to use this wheel hoe here and knock it out real quick like. All right, so our FAD system is now complete, and you may be thinking, that sure is a lot of work just to plant some sweet corn, and it is a little bit of work. It would probably take me about 30 minutes to do that if I wasn't carrying this camera around. But that 30 minutes of time up front there is going to save us a ton of water and a ton of time in the long run over the course of this sweet corn grow out here. Corn is really thirsty once it gets up and going. It needs a lot of water, and you can waste a lot of water and waste a lot of time trying to overhead water corn that's knee-high or taller. So there's lots of advantages to making that time investment up front. That way, when we want to feed our corn, all we got to do is just hook our water hose up there, set it, and forget it. All right, now let's talk about the variety of corn we're going to be planting today, why we picked this variety, and kind of the differences, advantages and disadvantages to growing certain different types of corn. Now, before we get into it, let me explain this real quick. I know most of y'all out there know better. There's a lot of people out there that don't. When we're talking about these different corn types, we're not talking about GMO corn. I can promise you, you've never, nor will you ever accidentally buy GMO sweet corn. It is significantly more expensive than the stuff we plant here in our backyard garden. So if you were buying some GMO corn, you'll know it, and your wallet will know it too. So this year we're growing a variety called Eden. It's a white sweet corn, and it falls into the augmented super sweet category. So as far as sweet corn types go, you've got your standard varieties like your Silver Queen, some of the kind of old-timey varieties. You've got the SE varieties, a lot of popular varieties in that category, peaches and cream, ambrosia, things like that. Then you've got your super sweet varieties. And then recently, over the last few years, corn breeders have started developing these varieties that kind of sit in the middle there. So these augmented super sweets are kind of a combination between the super sweet varieties and the SE varieties. You get the sweetness of the super sweet, you get that nice crunch of the SE varieties. Now there are certain advantages and disadvantages to growing each type of corn. Now we're not going to talk about taste and flavor here, although I know that is very, very important to some people. To me, it's not that important. Somebody puts a bowl of fresh homegrown sweet corn in front of me, I don't care what variety it is, I'm not going to complain about it. It's going to be good to me. So in my opinion, the advantages and disadvantages lie in the ease of growth, the harvest window, things like that. So we'll start off talking about the advantages and disadvantages with these standard varieties like Silver Queen, these kind of older sweet corn varieties. Now these varieties are easier to grow in my opinion. They take longer to grow. They're a little more forgiving if you don't have your soil nutrients just right. You've got time there to kind of rescue the plants. If they're not looking as healthy as they should look, you can fertilize them again, give them a nice little boost, and still get a good harvest. But the disadvantage to growing those types of corn is that you don't have a very wide harvest window at all. You got to pick them at peak ripeness. You can't let them sit on the stalk for very long. The ears will get starchy on you. They won't be very sweet anymore. And if you're going to freeze your sweet corn, if you're going to cut it off the cob and freeze it, you got to harvest it and do that in the same day. You can't harvest Silver Queen, let it sit in the refrigerator for a few days, and then process it because, like I said, it's going to get starchy on you. So you got to be on top of your game if you're growing these standard varieties like Silver Queen, harvest, process, all in the same day. Now on the other end of the spectrum, we have the super sweet varieties, which are a little more difficult to grow, not as forgiving. That's because they grow out so fast, so you better have your nutrients in place. You better be timely with your fertilization, because these corn varieties a lot of times are going to be ready in 55 or 60 days. So you don't have an extended time period there to try to save some plants that are maybe not as green as they should be. That's a disadvantage. It's not quite as easy to grow. There's really, really sweet varieties, but the big advantage is if you got a longer harvest window, usually about 10 days or so. So you don't really have to be on top of your game as far as harvesting within a tiny little slot there. You can also harvest the corn, wait a few days if you want, then process it, put it up in the freezer. That's why these super sweet varieties are really good for people who sell at, like, you know, farmers markets, roadside stands, things like that, because they can harvest the corn. It will keep for a few days. They don't have to worry about getting real starchy on them in between the time they pick it and sell it. Now at this point you're probably wondering if I'm ever going to tell you about this new thing we're trying this year, or if I'm going to keep kicking the can down the road. But here we go. So this year I'm going to try to grow double rows of sweet corn in this plot right here, and if it works I can grow a lot more sweet corn in this 30 by 35 area as opposed to growing single rows. So traditionally we put our corn rows anywhere from 30 to 36 inches apart when we're planting single rows, but this year I put my rows 40 inches apart and we're going to plant double rows. So I've got 9 lines of tape out here. I'm going to plant 2 rows of corn per line of tape, which will actually give me 18 rows of corn in this plot. Now we plant a lot of things on double rows around here, but I've never grown corn on double rows. I've seen pictures of it being done. Looks like it works pretty well. That's why I want to try it. So with double rows, like I said, we can get 18 rows of corn in this 30 by 35 plot. If we were planting single rows on a 30-inch row spacing, we'd be getting about 14 rows of corn. If we were doing single rows on a 36-inch row spacing, we'd be getting about 11 or 12 rows out of this plot. So we can get a lot more corn out of here. And I've got 1,000 seeds in this bag here. If I just did single rows, I'd have a little seed left over. But I think we're doing double rows, we can use up all 1,000 seeds here. So we've got these two little mini furrows that were created when we covered that drip tape. So a little furrow on that side of the tape and a little furrow on that side of the tape. That's how we're gonna do our double rows. Now the only kicker here is that I'm gonna have to plant this corn by hand, because I know my walk behind seeder is not gonna perform very well running through those little mini furrows there. I also know my walk behind seeder is not gonna like all this debris that's in this plot right here. That's why this was a good year to try this technique, considering the condition of our soil or all the organic matter that we have left in this soil. So this is going to take a little time, but I won't ever finish if I don't get started. I'm going to try to drop these seeds about 8 inches apart or so. Usually I plant corn on about a 6-inch spacing, or thin to a 6-inch spacing, but since we're doing double rows here and given the amount of seed I've got and the calculations I've done, I think an 8-inch spacing is going to be perfect. Use all our seed on these 9 double rows. All right, now that took some time, but hopefully it'll be worth it. I dropped approximately 1,000 seeds there by hand, all about 8 inches apart. Have a few seeds left in my bag. I'll save those just in case there's any big skip areas out there once this corn germinates. Now I don't know if this is going to happen or not, but my hope is, since we had the chickens on here for 3 rounds, we won't have to side dress this corn near as much as we normally do. Maybe we can only side dress it 1 time instead of several times. And I'm thinking that because that's what happened in our onion plot over there. We had our chickens on that plot for 3 rounds before we planted onions. We've only had to side dress our onions 1 time, and it looks like we're going to make some pretty good onions. Now the good thing about corn is it's pretty easy to tell when it needs something. If the leaves aren't real dark green, it needs some juice. If the leaves look nice and dark green, you got some healthy corn. And for all of you out there that don't have an in-ground garden but are wondering if you can grow corn in your raised beds, we might give that a try later this year after this corn is done. So I hope you enjoyed the video today, and let me know in the comments below if you're growing corn this spring, what variety of corn you're growing, and let me know how you think this double row technique is going to work out. Maybe some of you out there have tried it, but let me know if you think it's going to work. And as always, you can find links to all our affiliate partners in the description below. Companies like Drip Depot, where we get all our irrigation supplies. We do have some coupon codes for some of those companies, so you can take advantage of those discounts. Don't forget to go check out our website, lazydogfarm.com, where we've got our fig trees for sale, got a few seeds for sale, our garden blog, recipes, all kind of good stuff over there. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to subscribe, hit that notification button, like and share, and we'll see you next time right here at Lazy Dog Farm.
Oh, farewell, by the beauty of your life.